Hello everyone, welcome to our video on the top 10 boss fights in the game of Elden Ring. As you might know, there are almost 100 bosses within this whole game that can be found, whether it's required or optional, and we have closely analyzed every single one of them according to the importance of the lore, the gameplay, how they look, what attacks they do, and everything possible to see which 10 of them seem the most appealing to us and to many others. Let's get it started.
Number 10. Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy. Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy is one of the most original boss fights in the game. Instead of the standard melee fight where you dodge attacks of someone close to you, in this fight you have to use a special sword that shoots a powerful burst of wind at your opponent. This sword is called the Serpent Hunter. In this case, your enemy is a huge serpent who is the Lord of the Volcano Manor. You have to dodge its attacks, and that can totally destroy your character if you do not memorize them properly. Finally, you are able to kill it, or that's what you think. The serpent then gets up and reveals itself to have a face in its lower neck. In a grotesque but exciting cutscene, the serpent removes a huge sword from its own throat and then proceeds to use it against you. The serpent has also gained magic abilities and summons huge floating skulls that smash into you, causing a lot of damage. We have seen this sort of gameplay previously in other Souls games, such as the Storm King and Demon Souls, but this sort of gameplay still fascinates us and the community.
Malkuth, the Black Blade, is one of the hardest bosses in the game, but also one of the most interesting. This shadowbound beast leaps in the air and throws aerial and slam attacks at you. He also has a huge sword that he likes slashing his enemies with, that can be extremely difficult to dodge. Malkuth can be an annoying boss at times, but it's definitely worth the hassle as you get really great awards.
Number 8. Malenia, Blade of Miquella, or Malenia, Goddess of Rot. Malenia, Blade of Miquella, or as she is known in her second phase, Malenia, the Goddess of Rot, is for many the hardest boss in the game. Her different movesets and combos can be extremely hard to evade, and she can kill you in one move. Although she is not a main boss, she is still worth it. Her first phase is a pretty generic fight with extremely fast moves and acrobatics. The interesting part takes place in her second phase, where she grows wings and starts casting spells at you. These spells contaminate you with rot, which makes this fight way harder. This fight definitely deserves a place in our top 10 list for its originality and uniqueness.
The number 7 spot goes to Radagon of the Golden Order and the Elden Beast, the two final bosses of the game. You start off this fight by fighting Radagon, a humanoid creature and the other half of a queen, who both use a sorcery and a golden hammer wielded by the gods against you in an isolated piece of land. He's very agile, and his attacks can hit you almost every time if you aren't careful. If you somehow manage to kill Radagon, then you move on to the second half of the battle against the Elden Beast, the true form of the Elden Ring. He appears to be a golden worm-like creature who uses projectiles, physical attacks, and has fast movement speeds, which make it hard to hit him. His tentacles also play a big part in the fight, along with his ability to breathe fire. The appearance, battles, and the importance of them within the lore are factors for this to be placed at this spot.
At number 6, we have the Mimic Tear. The Mimic Tear is one of the most unique bosses in any game from the Soulsborne series, as it has a unique mechanic not seen before. When you first enter the boss fight, a blob-like silver being will just stand there in the middle, but when you get closer, it suddenly converts into an exact replica of your character. This not only includes looks, but also weapons, gear, stats, skills, and more. This makes the fight even more interesting because your own upgrades could be used against you. You are basically fighting against yourself. If you play an annoying build, then you will finally see how irritating you can be, and karma will strike.
Rennala, the Queen of the Full Moon, is a sorcerer boss that can be found trapped in the main library within the Academy of Raya Lucaria. This boss is nothing like other ones, specializing in magic spells that she uses against you, with minions to further increase the difficulty of it. The first phase consists of you killing her minions that are providing a shield for her, and attacking her when she falls down to the ground. Now this part is relatively easy, but what makes this boss fight really interesting is the second segment. This consists of your character being teleported to the moon, and Rennala starts blasting you with spells that can be really hard to dodge in the breeze at the moment. After a while, she starts to summon spirits, including a dragon, a giant, and wolves. The boss can be difficult at times, but it sure is one of the coolest in the entire game.
Number 4, the Fire Giant. The Fire Giant is one of the main bosses in the game, and you need to kill it in order to progress through the story. This legendary beast can be found in the mountaintops of the Giants, which is an endgame location that is pretty hard to get to. When you first enter the boss fight, you can get on your horse and hit him in the ankles while he tries to dodge them and hit you with immensely powerful attacks. These attacks can even one-shot you. At one point, you do so much damage to his ankles that after one of the best cutscenes in the game, the Fire Giant rips off his own damaged foot and opens his third eye. This is insane. He starts to throw multiple fire attacks at you that can one-shot you if you are not careful. You have to carefully get behind him to be able to even do a little bit of damage. This boss fight for sure deserves a spot on this list for its originality and gameplay overall.
Number 3. Godfrey, First Elden Lord, and the Hora Luke's Warrior. Godfrey, First Elden Lord, is a mandatory boss fought towards the end of the game. This is a real form of another boss you fight earlier on, which is found in spirit form. In this phase, he wears heavy armor and uses a war axe as his main weapon. When he has around 40% of his total health left, he lets go of all of his gear, armor, and weaponry and transforms into the Hora Luke's Warrior, and deals lots of physical damage using his body and his bare fists. He is significantly more aggressive during this portion of the fight, and incredibly agile. Along with the importance in the lore, this battle is very enjoyable, and the boss himself looks really fierce, which is why we have placed it this high on our list.
At the number 2 spot, we have Morgoth the Omen King. Morgoth is very similar to the first main boss in the game, Margit the Fell Omen. Morgoth has most of the same attacks, but they are much faster and do way more damage. He is basically a buffed version of Margit. What makes this fight so good is that its gameplay is just so fun and unique. The whole time you are in this fight, you do not get bored. It's just so satisfying to dodge many of the attacks thrown at you, and everything is fast paced. The cool new combos and attacks also help make this fight one of the best in the entire game.
Finally, for our number 1 pick for this video, we have Star Scourge Radahn. Radahn is a fallen lord who is damaged, and now roams the deserts, eating anything it's able to find. His humongous size makes him incredibly intimidating to most players, and no one has had the courage to stand up to him. That is until you find the castle, where the knights are preparing for a festival. In this festival, they are planning to give Radahn a noble death. You join them and get teleported to this desert. When you spawn, Radahn already starts to hit you with strong aerial attacks that can be really hard to dodge. You can then summon multiple NPCs that help you during this whole fight. Radahn is riding on a small horse, and his attacks do a lot of damage. After getting him to about half health, he suddenly jumps up into space. At first, you'd be confused, but then he suddenly blasts into the ground like a meteorite. This commences his second phase, where he starts wielding all sorts of magic throughout the battlefield. This boss is for sure one of the most exciting, and all of its aspects make it the best boss fight in the whole game for many.
That's it. Those were our top picks for the top 10 best boss fights in Elden Ring. These legendary battles make the game better overall, and it wouldn't be the same without them.